Good afternoon. Glad to see you all here. We are continuing our story of Ruth. But before we do that, I'd like to run a quick little exercise or a little conversation about something. And that is about masks. You see, we wear masks for a particular reason. And I don't mean just to play hockey or something like this. But you know what hockey masks are for. These are goalie masks, of course, and if anyone's played hockey or any other sport, usually you'll have some kind of face protection, especially if the object that is being thrown around is particularly hard, and a hockey puck certainly is a part of that. So I'm sorry to our Edmonton friends, I know what's going on. But masks are also used particularly for protection. And the masks that we wear are not just the physical ones that protect us from pucks or balls and things like that, sharp objects. We wear masks on a figurative level. Your personality, a lot of times, has to do with the way that you have developed coping mechanisms to protect yourself. To protect yourself from harm. To protect yourself from exposure, especially in environments where you're unsure of the safety. So when you enter into a room or attend a new group of people, there is a certain degree of masking that will happen. And there's nothing wrong with that per se, because whatever we've experienced in our lives, all those added experiences will determine a lot of times how and if we protect ourselves. But what does that do to us? And how do we think about this in regards to God's kingdom, of who God is, who He made us to be? What does it mean that we have to protect ourselves or mask ourselves? So I'm going to be asking you to do a particular exercise, but I might as well practice what I preach, because I want to invite you to consider what it is to unmask. Now, I want to put this caveat right at the beginning, and that is, you need to be able to assess the space that you're in. And my hope is that your experience and understanding and wisdom will let you know where it is appropriate to put your armor down. Because there are spaces that are not safe, and you have to know the difference. But the other aspect too is, can you create space in which others can lay their masks down? And I'm talking about your home, perhaps your place of work, in the church, among your friends, perhaps even your family. Because each of these places can be perilous. Each of these places can feel unsafe. But how do you become a person who makes things safer? So, what I'm going to be asking you to do is this, and I'm going to ask you to begin to think about it, to find someone else in this room and share a story from your past about something that is meaningful or significant to you. I'm not asking for something like outlandish or extremely deep and cutting. It's what you want it to be. It's how safe you feel or are willing to be. Does that make sense? So as far as you are willing. So in the next few moments, take a moment. Think about what you might want to share from your life with someone else. And perhaps with someone you didn't come with or know that well. But what I'm going to do now is that most of you know me relatively well, because I've been around for a long time in this church. I've told you a lot of stories. So how do I share something with you? Well, I'm going to share something with you that I have never shared with anyone else. Now, a lot of you may or may not know, most of you don't know, that I actually write a lot of poetry. And here's a poem I wrote quite a while ago, but it'll reveal something about me. And after I read it, I'm going to let you find that other person and share as deeply or as simply as you like. But here is my sharing with you. This poem that I wrote is entitled, My Secret Bird. All frightened in flight and feathers, my heart thrilled to see a wild thing in our ordered house. But a bird does not belong in the confines of a well-furnished upper-middle-class home. It doesn't bother with fine bone china or grandfather's clocks or crystal chandeliers. It belongs in the expanse of the open, opulent sky. Father's fishing net in hand, chasing up and down the stairs, finally to the basement, I swing to catch, to hold, to free. The metal edge of the net meets brittle bird bones and vibrates up my arms, around my brain, and through my heart. I know what I have done. There's not enough good intention in the whole wide world. No absolution enough for a heart without malice to restore the life taken, to turn back time and tide, to stem the gaping wound in a 10-year-old's conscience that remains lodged to this day in a grown man's body. Blood in cupped hands that dug a shallow grave in the garden, gently settling the soil over a fellow creature. I walked back into the confines of a well-furnished upper middle-class life of bone china, grandfather's clocks, and crystal chandeliers, without a glance into the expanse of the open, opulent sky, and never spoke of the bird again. I invite you to share as you will and as you like with another person a story from your life, as simple or as deep as you like. I invite you to that. Down your conversation in the next minute or so, and then we'll proceed. So my hope is that your willingness to share a story, every time we share, and which is something we do basically every service, it's actually an opportunity to be vulnerable. So thank you for sharing what you've shared, whatever it might be. And my hope and prayer is that it was rewarding for you, that it was something that was worthwhile, not only the gift that you received from someone else, but your giving of a gift of yourself, of your story, a part of your life to someone else. Because in doing so, in our willingness to be vulnerable to one another, we create that space where we can put our masks down and become more ourselves and more who God has made us to be in a world that sometimes is a lot more judgmental. So we've come now to the third chapter of Ruth. And of course, I invite you to read the whole thing. It's not that long. It's 4 chapters, so we're pretty far deep into it already. And the first one we talked about the refugee status, the foreigner status, not only of Ruth, but of Elimelech and Naomi's family. They moved to Moab, and they moved back from Moab. They moved there because of a famine, and they've moved back now. And last week we talked about how she encounters this man seemingly randomly named Boaz. She basically becomes a person who gleans after people's fields. And the image I gave you was one of a binner, a person who picks up, those soda bottles and stuff like this to recycle. That was her. That was how she got by, if it was in some kind of like similarity with our sort of culture. And he's kind of like this person who owns the farm. What was read for us begins to bring us to another part of the story. And one other thing I wanted to remind you is that the name Ruth means friendship. It means compassionate friendship. And we're looking at particular characteristics of friendship that God teaches us through this fairly subtle book. Because God doesn't play a part. He's not given a particular role. Instead, he's woven into the fabric of the lives of certain people. That of Ruth, that of Boaz, and even Naomi. And so we're exploring the aspects of friendship. The first week we looked at loyalty, Ruth's loyalty to Naomi. And last week we looked at kindness, the kindness of Boaz towards this foreigner and this person who lives without status or means in his society. And today, as you may have surmised from the exercise, we're going to talk about vulnerability. And vulnerability might be defined as this: being exposed to the possibility of being harmed, attacked, or hurt reputationally, physically, or emotionally. Of course, it can expand beyond that, but this is a fairly basic definition. So Naomi takes a hold of Ruth, and as was read for us by Dave, she has a plan. She knows that Boaz is a kind man, and so she tells Ruth to figure out where he's threshing grain. And of course, there's a part of a harvest thing that happens in their culture. And she says, she works out this whole thing. Go find him, wait until he's all tired, wait till he goes to sleep, uncover his feet, lay at his feet, and when he wakes up, he'll tell you what to do. So she's got a plot. Like, she's got something going on. But as most plans go, they're just going to go the way they're going to go. And the actors within that are just going to do what they're going to do. To give you an idea, this is what a threshing floor kind of looks like. It's actually usually circular in their society. And they will have these oxen that will drag around a weight. You can see there's someone standing on this one. And they crush the grain to get all the chaff and everything off of it, and then they're going to winnow it. They're going to throw it up in the air, and then it's going to blow away. This is a big job, right? It's not like they got combines like we do, and a whole system of silos, and we got a lot of technology nowadays. But back in the day, it was all done in this manual labor kind of way. We actually have some threshing floors that still exist today that we can see archaeologically. There's these circular things. Usually they're filled with rocks. And they would just throw the grain on top. And this is where Boaz has been working all day, and he's going to be tired. Now, I'm trying to think of something that's an equivalent. If there's someone working in the office, maybe at one of these big tech giants or something, they're going to pitch a cot, right? Even your CEO, like maybe they'll go home to, via like helicopter or something. But whatever it is, they're working so hard that he's going to sleep there. He just doesn't have the time or energy to walk all the way home, to ride his horse or whatever it is. He's just going to sleep there. And so he's exhausted. And sure enough, Ruth, we're told, does exactly what Naomi tells her to do. Finds him while he's sleeping and uncovers his feet. Now, don't use the book of Ruth for dating tips. Please. This is not how it's done. You're gonna get arrested for burglary or something, or break and enter, if you're trying to do this kind of thing. So don't. It's a very cultural thing. It's a very unusual thing. And in fact, it's a very risky thing. Because what kind of man is Boaz? Has he been wearing that kindness mask that we saw from last week all this time? Has his kindness been a form of grooming for Ruth? I mean, this is something we would talk about in our society today. And what Naomi has planned, her plans, leaves Ruth in a very bad position, a very vulnerable position. Remember what her instructions were specifically. He will tell you what to do. Oh boy. You're going to put that much power in a man's hands? Some tired guy, in the middle of the night, with his feet uncovered? I don't know. But that's what she does. She does exactly as Ruth has told her. And there is something behind this. Of course, he wakes up. I don't know if you ever slept with your feet uncovered. I normally don't. Or if any part of yourself uncovered per se. It gets a little bit chilly maybe, depending, especially in Canada, here in the cold. And of course you wake up. I'm going to pull this back over. And he's going to wake up, but he's startled. Because I don't know if you've ever woken up to someone standing over you. Or someone present who's not supposed to be there. It freaks you out. And so we know that he's surprised. He's like, what the? And what he says is this: who are you? He says, who dat, right? Who is this? What are you doing here? What's going on? And so now we're kind of going off script. Because then he's supposed to sit up and go, Ruth, I'd like you to do this for me. That's what Naomi is thinking maybe. That's not how it goes. He goes, what's going on? Who are you? And she says something really interesting. It's your servant, Ruth. I'm here to serve you. It's like, whoa, dude, what is going on? This could be not cool on so many levels. But then something else happens. And this is way off script. Instead of him telling her what to do, she's going to tell him what to do. This is a big reversal. Kind of like this. Who's proposing to whom? In our culture, there is a thing, apparently, that men are supposed to do this job. I mean, I did it. My son did it, and some of you have experienced this. It's usually the dude in our culture who's going to ask for something. And Naomi had told Ruth, he's going to tell you what to do, but if you remember the text, she's the one who says, spread the edge of your garment over me. Take care of me. And yes, this was probably Naomi's idea in the sense of, well, he should know his duty, as that family member who's supposed to take care of other family members. So he's just going to jump to it. This is not how it goes. She makes it explicit. What she's saying is this: help me. I need you to redeem me and Naomi. You know, one of the most vulnerable things that people don't like to do is ask for help. Notoriously, people don't like to ask for directions, even if we're lost like somewhere in the middle of the countryside. We don't want to ask. I know Google's got it, right? That's what we're going to do. We'll just ask Google. I don't want to talk to someone. But to ask someone for help, to beg someone for help, in this particular manner, in this vulnerable way, is what Ruth is up to. And nothing gets more vulnerable. I don't know if anyone's proposed to anybody. I know a few married couples around here. But how did you feel when you were about to propose? Like, and it doesn't matter to me if it was the man or a woman proposed. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. But I know in my case, that ring was burning a hole in my pocket. And I know my son shared with me, because he just got engaged a few weeks ago, that he was just freaking out the whole day. And he goes to lunch with Pia, his now fiance, and he can't eat a thing. He just can't. He's just so nervous. He's so anxious. Because what are you doing when you're doing a proposal? You're asking someone to marry you, but you're also giving. This is your heart. This is your future. You're putting it into someone else's hands. And I got to tell you, one of the most devastating things to watch, it's a car wreck, is when people turn down proposals. I've known people. I've known this happen to people. And it is a horror show. So you can imagine, because nobody knows what's going to happen. What is the response in a proposal? Those of you who are anticipating this in the future somewhere, you'll get there. Hopefully you'll be cool as a cucumber, right? You say, yeah, okay, we'll see. I doubt it. Ruth has laid it all on the line. She is vulnerable in front of Boaz. The whole setup, it puts her in a really compromising position. And there's one other note to sort of throw in here. There's that term that is used in Ruth, the whole book of Ruth, about the kinsman redeemer. I was like, what the heck is that? That was a practice back in their day where a prominent person who's close to the family, the closest relative, if a brother or a relative dies, especially in the male line, because that's how they, it's a patriarchal society, the name continues through the man in that society. If they die, the women in his household have no status, and he has no lineage to follow him, so it's considered cut off. And to stop that, and to give hope to that part of the family, there's a person there are people who are designated as kinsman redeemers, people who are closest to that family, who can marry into that family or take them under their wing, and the children of that widow, and in this case, it'd be the grandchild or something like this, will carry the name of the one who has passed away. If you think about it, it's a dual risk. What she's asking for is not small. Because Boaz, if he becomes the kinsman redeemer, is going to give up an aspect of his name for his relative, and that is Naomi's husband, Elimelech, who had passed away. And he would continue the line of that family, because the boys in that family had all died. Chapter 1, check it out. So he's giving up that firstborn's name if he chooses to do this. If he chooses to be a kinsman redeemer. If he marries her. If he accepts this proposal. Well, you know how it goes, because it's been read for us. His response is interesting. The way he addresses her, did you read that? He says, my daughter. Whoa. This is not being friend zoned, okay? This is like being family zoned. Like, what is this? But I trust me, when he uses this term, it's not an impropriety. He is actually creating a form of respect. He's saying, "Okay, I see you as family. I'm not going to take advantage of you. I see you as a family member." And using that term already indicates a few things, because he's going to go on to say, you could have chosen another person, a younger person, maybe even a richer person. But you gave me this privilege. And he also says this, everyone in the region knows what a noble person you are. He compliments her. He knows her. He's seen her already working in the fields, taking care of Naomi, her loyalty, which we talked about. And then, of course, that's a proposal on the table here. And here the other shoe drops. But there's another guy who's actually ahead of me in the kinsman redeemer line, who is closer to your family. But he says this, I will do what you have asked. I accept, but there is this impediment. And he's a person who respects the law. Now, I want to say something about this really interesting. You have to realize when the book of Ruth is set. It's set in a time of what we call the Judges, where there are no rulers in Israel. There's basically a bunch of tribes doing their own thing, and literally everyone was doing their own thing. In the book right before Ruth, or in the Judges, it ends with murder, mutilation, near genocide on each other as Israelites, as their own family. And so when you have someone who is not going to rape people, who's not going to take advantage of people, who are going to follow the rules of the Torah laws, they're living a completely different way of life than the people around them. They have chosen a different way of life, even though the entire society around them has gone their own way. And the way that they speak, remember, God does not act seemingly overtly, but they keep on referencing who God is. Boaz blesses Ruth in the name of God. And he says, I accept if I can move this impediment. I'm going to go talk to that guy today. Oh, okay. You're not going to send him an email or something? I don't know, send a message. He's going to personally go find that guy and ask what happens. And that's it. He says, I'll do what you say. I accept this proposal. But I've got to move this rock. Right? He says, stay, just sleep, just rest. You're going to be, and this is implicit, safe with me. And then this, she leaves before dawn, before you can identify people walking around at night. That's how it's described. And he says to her, people shouldn't know that there was a woman on the threshing floor. What is that detail? Is it because he's keeping secrets? What's going on? Not only does he protect her by not harassing her, he's protecting her reputation. And maybe in some ways protecting his own. There's no impropriety, of course, but even that he wants to protect. He doesn't want wagging tongues. You know? Goes out of his way to tell her, yeah, just rest here. You're safe with me, but let's go before anyone thinks anything of this. But I will get done what needs to get done. And don't leave empty-handed. So he takes her shawl. He says, give me your shawl. I'm going to just put all this grain in it. And he sends her home. Some commentators have said this is almost like a dowry or a promise that he's giving her something to say, hey, I'm good. My word is good. I'm not going to ditch. I'm going to do what I say. And of course she goes home. Shows this all to Naomi. Remember Naomi? Right from the beginning. She comes home. Her name means pleasant or sweet. And she comes back because her husband, sons are dead. She's now destitute, no status. She says, call me bitterness. My name is Mara. Because God has turned against me. And then last week, through the kindness of Boaz, we read, she says, God has maybe not forgotten to show kindness. And now, she says this to Ruth after she sees all this grain. She tells her what happened. She says, wait. There's hope. This man will do what he has said. You see a woman move from bitterness, saying God is against me, to it could be that God will be kind to us, both the living and the dead. It's the place where, wait, I think there's hope. It teaches us a movement, even Naomi, in her life, in her heart, as she observes as one of the characters in this story. And so they wait. We'll see what happens next week. But I will say this. Israel waited hundreds of years for a redeemer. And yes, they may have expected someone to ride in on a horse with an army and a flashing sword to drive out whoever it was that was oppressing them at that time, whether it's Assyrians or Babylonians or the Greeks, and then the Romans during Jesus' time. But instead, God sends a redeemer that saves them not from just what is around them, the circumstances, the symptoms. Jesus comes to save us from the root, the broken heart, the fearful, anxious heart, the bitter heart against God for the way the world is. He is the one who will seed kindness into our brokenness. He is the one who will extend hope even in our waiting. And we as Christians today, 2,000 years after the fact, have seen that God would lay everything down for us. Jesus would die to redeem us. We think about friendship in Ruth and Boaz and perhaps Naomi. But ultimately, this is in the Bible for a reason. in this indirect way where God works in the background. He extends his friendship to us. What is your relationship with God like? Is he a stranger to you? Or has your heart become open to him? Perhaps it's the bitterness of what's happened to you that you're trying to overcome. And you're beginning to believe, perhaps like Naomi, that he can be kind. And then we come to believe that he will keep his word. He will redeem us. He will transform us. He will change us. And so we become vulnerable as he was vulnerable. And you don't get more vulnerable than being stripped naked, flogged, given a crown of thorns, given a mocking sign that says, here's the King of the Jews, and get nailed to a cross and then lifted up in front of everyone to see you in your nakedness and brokenness. How vulnerable is God? You see, God creates space for us to be truly ourselves by being truly himself. We make so many distortions of who he is, an angry God, a God who demands these things of us, when in fact all he wants is to embrace us and to restore us to fullness. He is the one who has become vulnerable at our feet. But we are the ones who say, save us. Or is it that he is the one who's whispering, I will save you? That he has made this proposal. And all we need to do in our hearts, as hard as it is, knowing what we also give up in return, is yes, I accept this friendship. I want you to take these home as thoughts perhaps in this moment. Is it hard or easy for you to trust someone, let alone God? Why is that? What experiences have shaped your personality and responses? And does someone being vulnerable make you anxious or open? Because there are different reactions to vulnerability. My hope is that this week, and perhaps even forward in your life, you'll understand how vulnerability means taking risks, holding on to hope, learning to trust, and letting others trust you. Let's pray together. Father, I thank you because this story reminds us that without vulnerability, you can't win us. And what you ask from us is that same response of honesty, but how broken sometimes we are, how hurt we are, how angry we are, how bitter we may have been, how hopeless, and how we long, loved. And you have said that you have loved us with an everlasting love. Help us to believe it, to learn it, to live in it, and in so doing, open our hearts to those around us so that they too might open theirs. May your Holy Spirit guide us, we pray. In Jesus' name.